Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Makers of Minnesota Recap podcast, where we go back and we talk to some of the makers that we've talked to before to check in and see how their business has changed. I have Kelly McManus on the line, and she is with Dumpling and Strand. She was our guest from episode 58. So, Kelly, we're on episode 122, so we've done a few since then. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Stephanie. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great to see you. I got a chance to reconnect with you. We were actually cooking for the Ronald McDonald House recently. And one of the things I love about all of the makers here is everybody is so generous. It was really fun to connect with you again.
Yeah, it was a great night. Jillian McGarry, who owns Mostly Made, has this awesome mission where she does random acts of casseroles. And so part of doing that is going and volunteering at places like Ronald McDonald House. And she happened to ask quite a few of us makers to come and be a part of that. And it was just a really wonderful evening, not only to help support the families at Ronald McDonald House, but also to have a little, I called it Making an American Quilt Night, with local food producers and just catching up and yourself just catching up and hearing what everybody's been doing.
Yeah.
It was really neat. It was a neat evening.
Okay, so since you and I talked on the podcast, at that point you had a partner, Jeff Casper, and he was your neighbor. And are you guys still partners, or have you taken the business on yourself?
Yeah, so Jeff is still equity partner in the company. He, after the Minnesota Cup, we were finalists in the Minnesota Cup in 2017, and after that, he decided that he actually needed to do something where he was actually getting paid. Imagine that. So he still helps us with R&D and helps us with technical assistance. And we're actually formulating a new noodle in the next coming months. I'm not going to say any more than that. But it's kind of exciting and it's timely.
It's like a tease that says we need to talk to you again in like 4 months.
Yeah. So he stepped away from the day-to-day, and I took over, and we've just been chugging along since. It's been a really interesting last couple of. It'll be about 9 months to a year now. Lots of bumpiness, but lots of really exciting possibilities that have been happening.
And you guys moved into the Northeast Food District Kitchen Commissary, correct?
We did. So back in January or February of this year, we moved into a space. It's the Northeast Food District. It's over in Northeast, obviously. And it's part of a collaboration with Midwest Pantry and Ellis Properties, and it's this really lovely, it's kind of the step up from a shared kitchen,
right?
Where we started at Gia Kitchen, where this new space, we have our own, 600 square foot kitchen. We get to lock it, we get to leave it, we get to work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week if we want, and then we share freezer and cooler space with about 6 other producers. And so we're all in that medium, small to medium size.
Yeah. And by doing that, outside of that, it gives you obviously some shared resources. Do you have community there, and do you guys share tips and tricks with each other? And
yeah, actually, we do a lot. We're all really busy, so we have our heads down and we're working. And, often you have your blinders on and you can go weeks without talking to anybody. But the minute one of us has either, can you meet a delivery person, to, hey, where did you, how did you figure out your Amazon listing and getting on, FBA by Amazon, just really technical things like that. They're there and really open to sharing that. So it's kind of this shorthand that we have with each other. That's really, really wonderful.
I think one of the biggest... Oh, sorry. I think one of the biggest things that I noticed when I talked to you is that you are changing your product from refrigerator to freezer.
Yeah, that has been that has taken up the lion's share of our work this year. it was a difficult decision, but it was an easy decision. It was pretty interesting the way it happened. We were finding that, at farmers markets, we were at Mill City every week, and what we were finding was that people were buying. They weren't just buying one pack at a time. They were buying 3, 4, and we have some really great really dedicated customers who would buy 9 or 12 at a time, and they'd mentioned that they'd come to us at the market because then they could stock up and freeze them, and not realizing that they could do the same thing if they went to the stores.
Right.
So what we found is that people's perception when they're in the refrigerated aisle was that it was a use it or lose it mentality. Like you buy one, you use it, and then you go back to the store and you buy another.
Right.
And it's really contrary to how we look at staples like pasta, where we often, we have a cupboard full of dried waiting to use them. So there was that thing happening, and then at the same time we were looking at how to looking ahead at going national 6 months out, and what we needed to do from a production and operations standpoint to get there. And what they really wanted us to be was we had to have products last on the shelves for 12 weeks or more.
Yep.
And so it was really this contradiction around what we really thought fresh meant. And, some of the big brands that are out there, they're doing that by par cooking their noodles,
yep,
which, they're already cooked. And we just have the illusion as consumers that they're still, quote unquote, fresh. But they have months and months of shelf life in refrigeration. And so as we were looking at that challenge, and we were testing out, getting out to a 12-week shelf life, we were finding that our whole grains, which is, really what we stand by, is really about this, fresh milling grains and toasting, doing all these curious things to them. By the time we hit 12 weeks, they were all fine from a health and safety standpoint, yep, but the grains themselves were really going flat. They were oxidizing all of their delicate fats in the grains. And so we just, we kept scratching our head, like, how are we going to do this? And so we started looking at the idea of moving into frozen, which really locks in all of those wonderful tastes from the start. And we were already shipping frozen to the stores, and they were thawing them and then putting the date code on them.
Oh, so interesting.
We knew that texture and quality were all going to be there. And then coupled with the whole taste of the grains, and then also watching, different brands starting to emerge in frozen, like pizza doughs and bone broths and other component products. Those are, ingredients that you make a meal with.
Yep.
We knew that consumers were changing their perception about what frozen could mean. We knew that, the whole Marie Callender and Hungry Man from the 80s was really kind of moving out and making way for new and innovative brands that, you could go in and buy something like our noodles. You can cook them in 2 minutes. You can make a meal in 15 that is, as good or better than something you would find in a restaurant.
Is it harder to stand out in the frozen food aisle?
Yeah, so that was one of the things that we were really working on this year as well, was the way that we pitched that to the stores. So, that is a big concern. The frozen aisles are kind of a desolate wasteland sometimes. But what we were finding is that because of that, stores are really excited about bringing people to the frozen aisle. So they're spending a lot of time trying to find those innovative products to put in there and kind of shift people's buying habits and moving them into frozen. So what we have been finding is that stores are interested in giving us multiple shelves.
Wow. So it's easier for you to have more shelf space. That's a great benefit.
Yeah. And then by doing that, you have more of a presence in frozen. So, I anticipate over the next 6 months, it's going to be, an evolution. It's an education to get people to move in that direction. But what I've found over the last 2 years in the farmers markets is that, it's easy for people to get there. They're excited about the product.
Right.
It's it's really tasty. It's really different than dried, and I think they're making the shift.
Are you at this point going to have to do like all the sampling all over again, or will you still be having a presence in the markets?
Yeah, so sampling, we're gearing up now. We're going to be doing lots of demos, so you'll be seeing us. We just landed in Kowalski's in the last month, and so we'll between the co-ops and Kowalski's, you'll see us out sampling.
Yep.
We stepped away from the farmers markets, from being at Mill City over the winter, just so that we could, really focus on doing our best work in the stores, since that's, eventually where, we need to be in order to make this a bigger brand.
Yep. Well, that's excellent. Will it, like, in terms of profitability, are you guys profitable? Do you feel like this is a thing that's going to make you profitable? Because you've been doing this how many years now, Kelly?
Yeah, so we're just coming up on our third year. We're not profitable. It's, not unlike many, small businesses. We're eking along.
Yep.
We bought some new equipment, and that's going to help us, be able to hit the volumes and make our margins better and all of that. So
you're going to
plan.
Yeah, you're going to be like a lot of the small businesses that I talk to, which is about year 4 and 5.
Yeah. Yep.
But think of all the, obviously you're thinking about this because this is your business, but like think of all the learning that's happened and maybe it'll be accelerated now because you're finally on what you feel like is the right path. You have to learn so much stuff.
Yeah. It's, from a person who is all around experiential marketing and brand development, I've learned a lot in the last 3 years about food and the food system that we are in, and just distribution in general. And it's crazy. It's been a really big. I feel like I have an MBA just already, a mini one.
If you had to do it all over again, would you?
That's a good question. Jeff and I were laughing. I just talked to him this last week, and we were laughing about how many twists and turns this company has had in the time since we started it, and how naive and, idealistic we were when we started. I think that, I will always have a business. I'm always going to be an entrepreneur, whether it's this company or something else. Food is a really quirky, fickle beast. And if I did something in food again, I obviously will have a lot more knowledge, and I'll do things a little bit differently, probably.
Right,
but,
right. Well, Kelly, I have to say I do love your product. It's delicious.
Oh, thanks, Stephanie.
It's funny you mentioned freezing because when you were in here on your podcast, you brought me I think 4 packages. And obviously I can't eat all that, so I froze them, and they have just held up beautifully. So I'm really excited about the move to the freezer section, because I think for me, that's the way I shop. I tend to sort of do a big shop, and then for 2 weeks, I kind of fill in the dribs and drabs. So for me, this is a great move, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it goes for you. And I thank you for catching us up on what's happening at Dumpling and Strand. Thanks for being on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me.
All right. We'll keep our eyes out, too. Yeah, you said you mentioned something new's coming in the couple months, so we'll keep our eyes out. Thanks, Kelly.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks, Stephanie.